on at all of this. A lot of the comments when Braverman was sacked, at least on social media, not that that's a necessary barometer, was well done. Now Sunak should go next. And then Cameron coming back, Ambassador Sadna may say that's the adult back in the cabinet, but it's Brexit is forever associated with David Cameron, and it has been the single most divisive issue before the Israel-Gaza conflict in the UK politics. How are the Tories being perceived today, or is that too generalized a question?
No, absolutely. It's and I agree with Navtej totally. It's an act of desperation because they are so behind in the polls. This is literally the countdown to, we are just less than a year away from the next elections, and if this is the way it goes, they're going to get a, they will be absolutely trumping in the polls. So the point is, it was desperation. He could not find. There is the counter argument. Yes, there may be an adult in the room, but he got Brexit. He walked away from the country whistling as he left, and, is this the man to bring back? He's also, there are questions on China, questions on Green Seal, his involvement. So basically, it's not a very clear, he's not Mr. Clean in that sense. But it is also seen as somebody who could not get anybody from his current MPs, his parliamentarians. Now, the problem is Cameron cannot sit in the House of Commons. So how do you question him? Because he's been made a Lord overnight. So he sits in the House of Lords. The minister in the Foreign Office has to be sitting in the House of Commons. There are so many logistical things. You cannot question him directly. It will be through committees. It's not the greatest thing to have done. So real act of desperation. But the only positive thing from all of this, Barka, I have to say, is that you must say that British democracy comes out really well, because the police were independent. They did not, take on Suella saying cancel them. They took their independent decision. They handled it so well that day, because the only people, she called them hate marchers, but the hate marchers were actually at the cenotaph. They were the neo-Nazis, the right-wingers. They were the ones who caused disruption. Police knew this, they attacked it. And also the Supreme Court judgment, completely independent. And those are the pillars of democracy that you see functioning, which are little positive lights in this whole scenario.
And one should also give some acknowledgement of the multiculturalism within the United Kingdom. Those images of I don't know if they just want me to talk about this Indian link at all, but those images of the Diwali at Downing Street, the bhajans in the mandirs. These are interesting images in a sort of post-colonial or a decolonizing world, so to speak. Pranav, before I give Navtej the last word, let me just ask you, what is the mood within the party today, within the party base? Is there a sense of confusion? Is there a sense of ideological chaos? What are people your age, for example, saying?
I think there is a real division within the party. I have friends who are absolutely ecstatic by the fact that David Cameron is back in the cabinet and really believes that he could win over not so much the red wall, but the blue wall seats, and maybe those seats that could go to the Liberal Democrats. And so it's seen as a real. I appreciate some of the words used by my esteemed guests, but there could be some logic there when it comes to the next election. He does have that gravitas. However, yes, just as we've said, Suella also has a huge voter base within the party and within the public. So, in truth, it is a divided party. But what do you expect? The Conservatives have been in for so long now. So much has happened, and not everything is going to be moving in unison. I mean, Labour haven't even come in yet, and they've got divisions. So I think division's not necessarily a bad thing, but it's how the party regroup and focus really heavily on the next election. Otherwise, lots and lots of people across the world, across the country, are going to lose their jobs, and those are the MPs currently holding Conservative seats. So I'm hoping that Conservative MPs see the bigger picture here. Yes, there are various policy issues that MPs are divided on, But actually, when it comes to it, they've got to win an election. And the way they're going to win an election is by adopting some sort of unifying force behind a leader. So let's hope that's what happens going forward. But yeah, that's what my view is as the flavour of the moment within the party.
Well, that's quite candid, and I think that ideological confusion and what it transforms into. But I think Ambassador Sana, that's a fair point. Labour is bitterly divided on what position to take on especially calls for a ceasefire. Strummer has not called for it. Humanitarian pauses is a different argument. So this sort of polarized discourse, which way to swing on the spectrum of right and left, this is a challenge now for politicians globally. Quick last word: Jay Shankar in the UK in the middle of this one evening meeting, who he thinks is the foreign secretary, then the person becomes the home secretary, so on. Major confusion. Any sort of implications for India here?
Well, I think it was a good thing. Our foreign minister was the right man in the right place at the right moment. When he went to the UK, according to the MEA press release, he was supposed to meet James Cleverly,
Yes.
so as foreign secretary. So
Yes.
he was, I think, he was probably the first foreign minister to have had a session with Cameron, which is a good thing. I'm sure they had a great chance to discuss the world at the moment, and particularly the Middle East, and the India UK relationship, in which has been growing. The FTA needs a final push, and I
Yeah.
think that must have come up. So I think it's very good that they could touch base at the same time. I do want to clarify one quick point, because I did say you have an adult in the room, but I didn't necessarily say that the adult came with shining credentials. So I agree with everything that Shamini followed up by saying, because there were. I was in the UK in 2016, and those were dire days.